The blood, it sings to us. So, Bloodborne. So, as a caveat, I'm actually not doing Bloodborne for the first time, but this is actually my fourth time that I've actually beaten Bloodborne. And I just did the recent playthrough because I just got the third and final ending and then kind of dropped it for a while because I got all the achievements and etc. But what I've done is I've come back and I've done one final playthrough of it. And what made me came back to it actually was the fact that I have PS Plus now, so I can use all the online features, which was kind of cool. It didn't make a huge difference, to be honest. Well, I mean, the notes were fun to actually do. But of course, everyone knows, Bloodborne is the #1 best exclusive 10 out of 10 game, the scourge of PC cucks. But, how is Bloodborne, actually? I mean, it is a very good game. It has a ton of replayability, for sure. And, it's pretty similar to Dark Souls in that its environmental storytelling is very obtuse, might be the right word. Going through it this time, though, I had read a lot of lore, and plus a lot of the people you see posting online give really interesting threads about it. What I found actually very interesting, maybe subconsciously, and this also motivated me to play it, was this guy put up this top 130 things you missed in Bloodborne, and I thought, I rolled my eyes like, oh great, it's the game theory thing. But he actually got a pretty decent amount of things that I simply did not realize. And that's because a lot of the things in the video are very tiny details that you just miss because of, I would honestly say, the camera, because you're so far out unless you're using the monocle, and then other things too that are like, I did not see that. Example, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous, but they saw that the doll in the abandoned workshop finger twitches, and okay, no, this one is a stupid one. I'm not even going to say it, but other things like if you look at the corpse of Koss in the DLC, apparently it has a human face, and it's just kind of hidden. You just have to tip the camera angle to see it. I mean, it's not really hidden. You just have to look for it. It's kind of interesting. But there's lots of stuff like that. So, and I was kind of talking on the DLC bit. So yeah, the notes are good. They're kind of fun. And the really fun thing about the notes is that when someone, you can vote on notes saying they're good or bad. And so if someone says your note is good, you actually get full HP. So if you could be in the middle of the boss fight, and if coincidentally someone rates your note as good, it goes right up. And of course, the other obvious thing is the co-op things that you can do for the bosses, which I've always, well, I guess it makes sense that, I don't know, I'd like to have it sometimes that you can just summon someone without needing the boss in the area. You could just grind the area, but whatever. Yeah, no, I had troubles at first where I think by area, it depends on, I had a feeling that certain areas people couldn't come in as often, even though you just go to the tombstone to participate in PvP or co-op. Maybe it was just the time I was playing, I don't know, but I had this feeling that some bosses just, I was waiting for maybe an hour for someone to show up and just nothing. So maybe it was just bad timing. But it was a really good experience. It's a great game. What's also great about it is when you replay, there's certain items you need to upgrade your weapons, and you can only really get them by replaying the game. So it was actually a lot of fun to go back and try out new weapons, and I've actually found some weapons that I really did like. And I'm glad, because in the DLC, it's kind of a weird thing because they give you way more weapons in the base game. I think you get maybe a third of all the weapons in base game, and DLC is 2/3 more. It's actually crazy. How many of those are useful? Most of them, I'd say. My new favorite one is definitely the whirligig saw. That's just so much fun, and it's actually very effective on certain bosses because, and again, I was an idiot and I didn't realize this until like maybe halfway through. But if you hold down L2, it goes into a constant saw mode, like a chainsaw, and it just kills everything in front of it. I mean, just right in front of you, not like a huge sweeping thing, but that's really good for certain bosses. For example, it was incredibly effective against Lady Maria, because if you just sawed her right in front of her, it would just stagger her. And I think I should have tried it for other bosses, but for most humanoid bosses, it would just do constant stagger, and she actually could not attack. At least for the first phase, and then she goes all crazy powerful, and then it's difficult. I don't know, I think something that I honestly missed is that when someone does PvE, they're not red anymore, which I honestly miss. I don't know, just a small detail. Again, I did all the quest lines that I did my last playthrough, but one that I immediately failed that I was planning to do was the Irene quest, which has got to be the most BS, ridiculously harsh thing where I went back to Odin Chapel and the guy she had to kill spawned and I didn't realize. I went there and I was like, oh, they're not here. And I went back to inventory management and then I hear death sound and she dies. I'm like, oh, good, great, awesome. So it's like, oh well, but I already got her Crow Hunter badge and did her quest line and everything. So actually, funnily enough, I actually tried a demo of Dark Souls 3 recently, and I had played Dark Souls 2 in the past, and it's such a weird thing that for me, Souls games, they need to have the right aesthetic or the right atmosphere and setting. I mean, for me, the gameplay alone won't really sell it, and 2 and 3, and even Demon Souls I tried, I just didn't feel it, It's only with Dark Souls and Bloodborne that have really stood out to me as very, fascinating, interesting, captivating stories. I don't like Bloodborne for a couple reasons, which are pretty superficial, but I'll just get them out of the way. One, there are not a lot of NPCs in this game, and that's what I always liked about Dark Souls. Not that it had a ton of NPCs, but when you did meet the NPC, they had one for kind of almost each area. They just kind of added to the world. They had, personalities, and, you had no one to talk to in the world, so when they showed up, it was a big deal, kind of. Or maybe the NPCs in this game are just less memorable, which might be the case, to be honest. The lying man and the nun and whatever, I don't know, they existed, they were there, but it doesn't really matter much. The other thing I don't like about Bloodborne, and again, superficial, but it only has 3 or 4 environments, really. You basically have the main city, you have the woods and the outskirts, and then you have the Nightmare Frontier, along with Cainhurst Castle. Yeah, I'm that guy who's like, I like my water level, I like my fire level, and Dark Souls had that. At least, I'm not sure if it had water level. I mean, it had the lake level, or lake area, but it had, the fire area. I don't know, I just like that stuff. What I also love about Bloodborne and Dark Souls is how much armor you get, and each set of armor it's designed well, and I find mixing and matching and finding the right aesthetic that goes with the right weapon is a lot of fun. And you can go by the executioner uses the executioner wheel, but it's fun to mix and match. When I did my first playthrough, my main weapon was the threaded cane. I loved it because you could always parry no matter what mode it was in, and it was just cool because you're Jack the Ripper. You're a gentleman with a top hat and you have a chain whip cane. It doesn't get better than that. It just doesn't get better. And it has a huge range, which is great. My second playthrough, I mainly used the Hunter's Axe, and it kind of became a scythe. And of course, Gehrman's scythe. Oh my god, I love scythes. I have to get that out of the way. I love scythes, and it's edgy as hell, but that was really, really fun to use. My ultimate, I guess, end of game setup is a scythe with the Gatling gun, which is just ridiculously fun. And I never really used the blunderbuss, strangely. I never really got the... I mean, I know how to stagger, but I always found that the pistol doing the parry was just the most effective, so I just used that most of the time. And replaying it made me realize how useful staggering is and parrying, because I just did not get it in the first game, and that's what you realize. That's what you have to realize about Souls games, is that they're really, really hard until you figure out you can parry everything, and you're like, oh, okay, this is how the game's supposed to be played. It just doesn't tell you that. Certain bosses. Who was my favorite boss? I really like the Shadows of Yharnam. That's just, 3 dudes in cloaks coming at you, walking into the wrong neighborhood, but you're gonna fight it out anyway, Lady Maria is a lot of fun. I don't know why, but I think most humanoid bosses are a lot of fun. The one thing I found about this playthrough is I fought the Orphan of Kos, and even with a co-op, last time it probably took me 100 tries. It was ridiculous. This time it took me 6. And yes, I did have a guy with me this time, but he didn't really do all that much, so I was surprised how well I did. Probably because I was using the blunderbuss and stunning him properly as I should have been. And again, once you figure that out, the games have become easy. They're like, okay, it's easy now. I gotcha. But timing your rolls and healing, as soon as you get hit, you want to roll away, but you can't. You have to actually wait for him to attack again, because by the time you roll, he's initiating his next attack, and then he'll hit you. So you have to roll after you're hit, just so you can use a blood vial and recover. And again, I've seen a lot of really cool things about the lore of this game, and I'm not sure if playing it again has made a lot of things more clear, but at least having the lore prior to playing this made it a lot more comprehensive, I think. The whole history of the Healing Church discovering blood in the Pethumeran tombs, I literally never got that, or Bergenworth rather, but I did not get that. I did not even throughout the entire first playthrough of Bloodborne, I did not understand what blood ministration was. I just didn't get it. I know it shows you in the opening cutscene, but I never put together the fact that they call the Healing Church because they give you blood which heals you. I was like, okay, I have blood that heals me that has no connection to the society. No, it has everything to do with it. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, and I think I beat Dark Beast Parl on my first try. That was insane, actually. I don't know, just really good experience overall, and yeah, it kind of tied everything together with, the aliens, the gods, the blood, the evolution, the insight. I guess my favorite part was how it tied together, or how I kind of got a more organic feel for the game, or the organic, how the gods are these weird organic creatures and how people evolve using organic methods. I don't know, it reminded me of Evangelion a lot, where it makes sense that you actually can become this godly thing through this weird multiplicity style evolution thing that could go horribly wrong and turn you into something like the One Reborn. Of course, talking about, or rather learning about Mensis and exactly how that happened with Mikolash, how he's the host of that nightmare, and how Lady Maria is the host of her nightmare, of the Hunter's nightmare, I believe. Or is it the different? No, it would have to be Lady Maria. She'd have to be the host of that nightmare. I know it has a great aesthetic as a game. It has very fun gameplay once you figure out how to stop dying. It has really cool combinations. You want to try every weapon. And, for example, this frustrates the heck out of me, but I did not figure out how to use Logarius's wheel until my 4th playthrough. I didn't realize that you need to put it in double-handed mode and then use L2, the special attack, to spin it so it actually does damage. And of course what it does is it drains your health comparative to how much damage it does, which is pretty cool, but I had no idea. I was like, how do I even use this? Another weird weapon is the Cost Parasite, where you have to use it with the Lumenwood rune, so you basically become like a squid man and use your squid tentacles to attack people, and it's great for staggering, but it doesn't do that much damage. I don't know, it's kind of cool. I'm sure I could figure out how to use it online using broken cheats or whatever. But yeah, no, I found I enjoyed the Astral Clock Tower more this time because I kind of knew what Lady Maria tried to do, or what she attempted to do. And again, I beat Ludwig on my second or third try, which is great. And I began to appreciate Ludwig's backstory a lot more, which is great. And again, if you want to go into the lore on this game, it's such a wild ride. It's so wild and it's so cool. And I think what I also realized after playing it for the fourth time is how they kind of distilled things into the most basic components. For example, your main consumables are blood vials and insight. So blood and insight. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge. This whole thing is very, very religious, I guess. You know, you use chalices to commune with the gods. It's such a cool thing, and I love religious concepts in games because they're so cool. And of course, this is dystopian religion, which is fine because it's really, really interesting how they play with the themes and ideas. The soundtrack is fine, I guess. I mean, it's mostly silence and then dissonance when you're fighting the bosses, which is like expected, I guess. But I don't know, it kind of gets tired after a while. I honestly started playing my own music after it, when I was playing it rather, and I found out that Nightwish goes pretty much well with any boss battle or fight, which is kind of cool. Is it a 10 out of 10 as amazing a game as everyone says it is, and PC Bro should be in tears? No, I don't think so. It's not an amazing game, but it's very good. Like, it's an 8 out of 10 for sure. Like, it's a very fun game. Again, the only issue is without the lore, I feel a lot of because I feel a lot of the item descriptions are poorly translated, because in Dark Souls, it's all about implications and leading all these breadcrumbs without giving the player the full picture of what the story or thing actually is. And I just felt that when I read the item descriptions of the game, and then I never made the connections until I watched a lore video and explained, oh, this is what they meant. I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense. And it's, I don't know. Like, for example, I never figured out what the heck the choir was doing. What is the choir? What are they doing? Apparently, they're a research facility to try and gain more insight. And I just never got that. Like, just the wording of when you get the choir garb and when you get the key to the choir, or the Upper Cathedral Ward, I have no idea what you're talking about. And, but now, like when you put it all together, it's actually very, very cool, and a super satisfying game to finally beat. I'm trying to think of little glitches and cheats. The one most ridiculous thing I found, and there was a note that told me how to do it with 36,000 likes or something, or maybe 3,000, maybe it's not that much, but, in the second phase of Mikolash's fight, you just throw poison knives at him and he dies. It's wonderful, because I died to that probably 20 or 30 times, and you can just poison him, and it's like, oh, well, this is easy now, cool. But yeah, it's a very aesthetic game. It's Victorian, Lovecraftian horror adventure. It's good, And you should play it if you have a PS4. If you own a PS4 and don't own Bloodborne, you should definitely play it, unless you don't like hard games, because it is hard, unless you want to get good, which is always an option. Aside of that, I can't think of anything else to talk about, so... But that being said, guys, enjoy the game of the decade, or whatever the heck IGN wants to call it, but it is a good game, so take care, guys.